Welcome to Lesson 5. Here we'll discuss individualizing the hedonic strategy. There's a picture of my older son and my wife enjoying some ice cream. And so that just illustrates what we're about to talk about, how to, in a practical sense, fit junk foods into a healthy diet. So an illustration I want to draw is The Rock on social media wowing everybody with his, in quotes, cheat meals because it's cheat day. So that's actually a misnomer. So when you see him eating a foot high stack of pancakes or 6 plates just loaded with sushi rolls, that is not technically a cheat day or a cheat meal. It's a highly strategic and meticulously planned day of eating. And so anything that's already baked into somebody's plan is not a cheat. And so indulgence meals, or meals that go off of the beaten path, are they can be part of a planned strategy that will allow your clients to feel like this is planned, even though it's an indulgence. So being able to bake that into plans can actually enable the majority of your clients to enjoy greater long-term success with a diet. If they have it in their mind that no foods are off limits, but they still have to exercise a degree of judiciousness in how much they consume of it, they will still, most of them anyway, will still do much better in the long term compared to people who have it in their mind that certain foods are completely off limits, and if you eat them, then you've blown the diet. So let's talk more about the hedonic strategy here. So Dovale and colleagues, they coined the term planned hedonic deviations. And these are defined as periodic bouts of being bad or behaving badly, going off of the diet, which they found to actually enhance dietary goal achievement as long as these indulgences were planned from the outset of the program. And let's talk about the concept of discretionary calories. So we can define that as a margin of intake that's available to you once you've consumed all of the essential nutrition in the diet. So it's whatever margin is left over that you can keep to a minority of your total daily calories, but you can fill it in with essentially whatever you want. And so in the public health literature that goes back more than a couple decades now, discretionary calorie examples were foods like desserts, alcoholic beverages, and just sort of classic junk foods that would be highly processed, hyper palatable types of foods that are easy to passively overconsume. As long as those foods, and you know, I'm even talking things like that would really scare some people, like sugar sweetened beverages, chocolate, ice cream, burgers, foods that would normally not comprise a Spartan or in quotes clean diet. If those types of foods are kept to a minority of the calories, say 10 to 20%, then the remaining 80 to 90% of the diet is from wholesome foods. Then you still have a healthy diet. And this 80-20 concept is something that applies to not just the dietary domain, but just multiple domains in life. So this is strategic moderation. Now, the way that you structure in the indulgence allotment, or the way that you structure the hedonic strategy, it doesn't have to be on a daily basis. Like, you don't have to impose this 10 to 20% indulgence food thing every day. You can just allow the person to have, for example, a full day where they are mindful of, let's say, their total caloric allotment, but They're free to kind of go off of the normal rules of targeting a certain amount of protein, carbs, and fat. They can just fill that calorie allotment with essentially whatever they want. I mean, that's one variation of structuring a hedonic strategy and squunching it all, let's say, into one day. But what a lot of people will do well with is the option to fill 10 to 20% of their total daily calories with honestly whatever they want. And so in a 2,000 calorie diet model, that would be 200 to 400 calories of whatever on earth you feel like eating or feel like drinking. Obviously, there are limitations with people who may have a problem with alcohol, for example. I mean, there are limits. But there are also some really cool dessert options that you can substitute in if you know how to use protein powder, and you've got some good recipes for that. And so, in just my personal experience, I love chocolate. I love chocolate-based desserts. I love chocolate and peanut butter-based desserts. And I still do eat flat out normal, real chocolate, but my protein smoothies, I enjoy them just as much and just as intensely as I would enjoy an actual dessert. So there's some really cool things with food technology, particularly with protein powder, that can make great substitutes with much better macronutrient profiles than your standard desserts. So I made a note for myself to discuss the binging tendency based on the belief of forbidden foods. So it's been my observations and in my experience, when people have a tendency towards binge eating, it's because they feel like they're eating a food that is forbidden from the plant. They feel like they're eating forbidden fruit. And so, therefore, let's say, for example, if they feel like chips are not allowed in a diet, then they will have the tendency to eat the whole huge bag of chips because, darn it, they're going to commit to never doing this again for at least a few months or ever, who knows? So they feel like they have to pull out all the stops and just get it out of their system, eat the whole thing because this stuff is bad. I'm never supposed to have this. Now, if you contrast that with helping people shift the mindset to it's just food. You can have it if you want. You can take it or leave it. You can have some of it. You can have some of it every day. Now, exceptions to this. I mean, some people do feel like they're at a point where they're not ready to eat whatever they want because they have it in their mind that certain foods are trigger foods. But why? If you dig deep into why somebody feels a food is a trigger food, is because deep down they feel like they're not allowed to have it. So if you can gradually change people's mindset about foods and kind of present them with the paradigm that as long as the majority of the diet is wholesome, then a minority of the diet being from indulgence foods actually fuels long-term adherence. And so that's something that you'll have to take on a case-by-case basis. But the majority of our clients are going to do well in the long term with a certain minority of calories being from whatever they want, including the indulgence foods, including desserts, including drinks, if they're not trying to be abstinent from alcohol. And yeah, that would boil down to, in most cases, in the neighborhood of 200 to 400 calories of whatever they want. And if somebody is a little more prone to the 10% limit, then so be it. You know, if they're more prone to the 20% limit, then so be it. You give people that flexibility and that wiggle room. And I also have to say, if an individual does not have any propensity at all to like any kind of indulgence food, whether it's on the savory side or the sweet side, then you don't have to force it. If somebody eats 100%, whole and minimally refined and wholesome and super nutrient dense foods, and that's all they like. They don't like any form of dessert or indulgence or deep fried food or anything like that ever. They prefer not having any of that. Then, hey, more power to them as long as that's their personal preference. But they'll be in the very, very small minority. And so, with that, we conclude the lesson. And I'll see you on the final lesson where we talk about water as an underrated facilitator of weight and fat loss success.